As I was leaving the checkpoint, I thought, do not die today. And when I stepped in that IED, I thought, I cannot believe I've gone and died. I was born with what I would call as a sense of duty. I wanted to serve something that was bigger than I was. I felt like there was no other job in the world that you could be more proud to talk about than that of serving your country. I served with a Scottish regiment at the start, and there was one day I was out on a speed march with my regiment. There was a platoon of paratroopers on P Company test week. I just remember seeing this big dust cloud around the platoon that was moving so fast. Wall of noise, aggression, and they were just giving it everything. And I remember kind of looking up at them in awe, and one of my instructors saying to me, "Don't look at them, Meenagh, or I'll make you join them." That was a little bit of a penny drop moment. I thought, I wouldn't actually mind that. I would quite like that, actually. I want to see if I'm good enough. There was no second choice. It was the parachute regiment or nothing. The prospect of Afghanistan was on the horizon, and probably the way that I sold it to my mother anyway was, if I'm going to go to war, Mum, then I may as well be with the very best. When I touched down on the kind of dirt and dust of Afghanistan, I took so much confidence from knowing when it went sideways, when it got rough, when it got scary, these are the kind of human beings who run towards danger. We were in the middle of the night, and just as I was starting to kind of settle down for a couple of hours kip, I heard this sickening explosion, and then I could hear the net saying that Liam King had stepped on an IED. So instantly we mobilised. We arrived just as Liam was casevaced, so we seen the helicopter flying away. So we were tasked to go in there and do firstly a battle damage assessment, see what had happened, and also our main priority was to recover Liam's weapon and other kind of sensitive kit he had. By this point, the light had come up. Some locals had started to pop over walls and start to have a wee look at what was going on. Eventually the platoon sergeant says, "I've seen enough. This is dodgy. We're going to get hit here. Let's get out. Let's go back." And I remember thinking to myself, oh man, this has been a day of days. This has been a tough one. And I took 2 steps back in the direction I just came, and I just felt myself getting lifted up in the air. I knew straight away that something horrendous had happened. The world goes into slow motion. There was blurred vision. There was moments of just kind of stillness. I thought, this is what it must feel like to die, and I was waiting to drop off. That's what I thought would happen. But then reality came rushing back, and I felt like my senses just went into overdrive. And it was at that moment I thought, oh, I've got a chance here. I straight away just sat up, and I went on into my top pockets where I had tourniquets, and I started applying them. Rolled myself into a ball with my stumps up in the air, and I got on the radio saying, "Come and get me, boys. My legs are gone, but I've stopped the bleeding." To get me on that stretcher, and again, another massive sigh of relief. I think I'm going home today. Martin had got to me quicker than anyone else because he'd been searching with me. He kind of helped me, do the finishing touches, get the tourniquets on, make sure the bleeding had stopped. And Martin was at the head of the stretcher, and I was looking over my right shoulder. And I remember seeing Martin step backwards up onto the main path, and he looked to his right, and then the world just went black again. I was buried, and I started kind of removing a lot of dirt from my face, and found myself in a place where I couldn't open my eyes. But what I did is I could hear each friend, so I shouted each of their names individually, and I asked them for a bit of a status. So I'd shout each person's name, and I said, "Can you walk? Can you see?" And when I shouted Martin's name, it was quiet. I shouted it again, and Gavin, who was the guy who could see, he just said, "He's unresponsive, mate." And that was a pretty rough moment. Soon after that, I drifted off, and I woke up in Birmingham 2 days later. The first thing I felt when I opened my eyes was sorry, because I opened my eyes and I seen my mum, and she was shattered. I chose to go to war. I knew that losing my legs was a realistic outcome. I knew that dying was a realistic outcome. I'd made peace with it. My mum hadn't. I was her wee boy. Seeing what it had done to her, as soon as I opened my eyes, filled me with guilt for it happening. The only way, when you're truly overwhelmed, the only way that you can physically and mentally cope is by going minute to minute, day to day, and I became this little goal-setting machine from day one, whether it was to sit up, whether it was to brush my own teeth, or to get my feeding tube out and feed myself, or to wheel to the end of the corridor. My whole life became about being obsessed by tiny little wins. A year or so beyond injury, I smashed all my rehab, I got my prosthetic legs, I was up and running. You know, I had everything on paper that a veteran needs when they leave the service. But what I didn't have was a community. I didn't have purpose, and I was lonely. So I contacted a rowing coach who I'd met, and I said to him, I don't care what you make me do, I don't care where it takes us, but I'm going to turn up to the rowing centre every day, and I'm going to do exactly what you tell me. You know, if you tell me to sweep the floor, I'll sweep the floor. If you tell me to train, I'll train. I don't know where it's going to take us, but I am going to turn up every day and I'm going to commit my time to you. And that probably accumulated with the inaugural Invictus Games in 2014, where I trained for 18 months, gave it absolutely everything, went to London, representing my country again, pulled on the Great Britain tracksuit and came away with a silver medal. And that was probably where I got the first bite of the bug of high performance sport. I was introduced to Para Nordic skiing in 2014, and I was presented the opportunity in 2016 to leave the well-oiled machine that was GB rowing and go on this one-man journey into a sport that at the time really didn't exist in the UK. I wanted to put Great Britain truly on the map and to be very, very competitive in one of the hardest sports on planet Earth. And in a really nice way to cap off this season, I went to Sweden to the World Championships and was able to essentially have my perfect performance. Yeah, that equated to me winning a silver medal and Great Britain's first ever biathlon medal across any board. Martin's memory and his legacy and his sacrifice is something that I feel now that he has paid the ultimate price to lift me into my second chance at life. He got me home that day and he would give anything to be here, even on my worst day. So one day we'll cross paths again, and when I look him in the eye, I'll be able to say, I gave it everything. Like you gave me the chance and I grabbed it with both hands and I ran with it. I'm incredibly proud and privileged to be associated with and to be an ambassador for Erskine. The longevity of what Erskine have provided since the First World War has set the standard to how veterans care should be. Erskine understand that veterans who come home have then got a long, long life to live afterwards. Their war doesn't end. People who serve for a reason. They serve because they wanted to give something back. I don't know what life's going to look like for a double amputee in 10, 20, 30 years, but I know that the safety net of Erskine will always be here.
And what would you say to the players of the Veterans Lottery, Scott, the people who are contributing £10 a month to help fund places like Erskine?
I'm going to wake up every single day for the rest of my life and not have legs because of the price I paid once in a war that one day will be a distant memory, but I'm going to still have to deal with those consequences every day. And the people who play the Veterans Lottery and the people who give to the Veterans Foundation, they see the long-term importance, regardless of how popular, no matter how well remembered a conflict is. They know the price our veterans paid, and that as a veteran, I'm eternally grateful, and I take great confidence from the generosity of people who will always continue to support our nation's veterans.